So Nigel Evans denied allegations that he abused his position of power to sexually assault young men. But during the trial, he admitted to having sex in his constituency home with a man 33 years his junior, who'd previously done work experience in Westminster. As we've heard, Mr. Evans was cleared of all charges. But the trial has offered an insight into the way politics and sex collide in Parliament. Channel 4 News has carried out an exclusive survey of men and women across the political spectrum. We revealed that a third have experienced sexual harassment, and it's actually men who are more likely to be victims. I've been hearing their stories. Order! The trial of the former Commons Deputy Speaker has shone an unforgiving light on sexual politics in Westminster. This afternoon, he was cleared of all charges. The controversy over the Liberal Democrats' handling of the Lord Rennell allegations earlier this year showed how problematic the relationship between sex and power can be.
I saw an MP who said, "Sorry, I didn't recognise you with your clothes on."
I've even been promised help with my career if I had sex with them.
Channel 4 News has been investigating the experiences of men and women working in politics. What we found is that sexual harassment and the abuse of power is really part of the fabric. We've carried out one-to-one interviews with 70 people from across the political spectrum, ranging from researchers and activists to MPs from all political parties and sexual orientations. The results reveal a seemingly ingrained problem in Westminster. One third told us they'd personally experienced some kind of sexual harassment, which they believed was an abuse of power. Nearly a quarter told us that they'd witnessed someone else being sexually harassed, or that a friend had confided in them. Less than half said they had no first-hand or second-hand knowledge of such behaviour. Sexual harassment occurs in all walks of life. But while we spoke to only a fraction of those who work in Parliament, it seems that nonetheless there's something unique about Westminster.
Time and time again, you hear the same stories with different people. And they're all known about. They're known about by everybody who works as a researcher or a staffer in Parliament. They're known about by most of the journalists, and they're known about by their own party, their own chief whip and their own party leaders.
Political journalist Alex Wickham has himself received unwanted sexual advances, and when he wrote an article about his experiences, he was contacted by many young parliamentary workers.
Stories of men and women saying that from all three parties, saying that they've been treated the way they feel inappropriately, and there's nothing they can do about it, and there's a sort of really sort of climate of sexual harassment going on in Parliament that the parties have no interest in dealing with.
A culture of silence is pervasive, and we came up against it ourselves carrying out our research. Those we did talk to were too scared to speak on camera for fear of it ending their parliamentary career.
When I had left,
but these are their own words, spoken by actors. They describe a place where humiliating sexual harassment is commonplace, and preferment can go hand in hand with favouritism.
I felt uncomfortable, but
he's notorious. He drinks a lot. He grabbed my friend's bottom and then hit on another friend. And I think he was having a relationship with one of his members of staff.
It was at an event for young political activists. I was asked to go to the gents by this one MP who had always been a nice guy. I just brushed it off. The MP suggested we go to the toilets at about 1 a.m. But then at 3 a.m. I saw him going back to his hotel room with a guy who looked about 18.
It began to feel that internships were just given out as gifts to people who he networked with or people who he had drinks with. My pay and my promotion were affected, and we felt like we were being mistreated.
I said no and I didn't complain.
Our survey revealed that young men were actually more likely to be sexually harassed. 40% of the men we spoke to had received unwanted sexual advances.
Researchers would hang around with the groups.
He invited the whole office to a gay bar, and he'd come up to me and put his arm around my shoulder. But this one time, he slid it right down my back, and I said, I moved it away.
I watched men coming onto men and men hiring men because they wanted to sleep with them. I saw male MPs and researchers having relationships. While I was there, older men would be exploring their sexuality and be predatory on young men. I saw this happening.
It was just hugging and touching arms, that sort of thing. There was banter, but it was intimate. That intern was still a student and went back to uni to finish his degree.
Political lobbyist and former chief executive of Stonewall, Ben Summerskill, recognises the world described by the testimony we've heard.
Well, I have come across cases over the years in all political parties involving both women and men where people actually don't feel sufficiently confident to be able to complain. And of course that's quite understandable because often they're working for a political party they're completely devoted to. They know that any complaint is likely to become public and will then become a political issue. And there isn't any framework of supervision, HR or people department in either Parliament or the political parties that is used to being able to deal with this.
Happening in an employment
We also met a senior woman in Parliament who's spoken to many young people. She believes they have nowhere to go for help with their experiences. She didn't want to be identified.
They range from inappropriate comments all the way through to people being inappropriately touched and asked to do things. And being invited to places where they know it's going to happen there and feeling really, really uncomfortable with it. And particularly feeling because it's happening in an employment setting, that if they say no, or in any way suggest that they don't want to do it, they're in danger of losing their job. So there is very much this culture of silence.
Many people working behind the scenes in Parliament are young. 70% of the incidents we were told about happened to people under 25. And many felt that speaking out so early in their career would put an end to their political ambitions.
It's endemic to Parliament. Young people come in at an early age, often straight from university, or a lot of them, even before they're 21. It's what they see and it's what they hear.
For those who want to forge a career in national politics, there is no alternative workplace.
The fallout and the consequences would be horrendous. They would probably lose their job. They probably won't work in Parliament again.
It's almost impossible for a young person in politics to go to their whips and make a complaint because they will firstly forever be known as the person who had XYZ happen to them, and that really shows the huge power that is wielded over young people in politics.
Perhaps the culture is best summed up by what we're told Tory MPs have been saying just last week. One said that people joining Parliament should know what they're getting into. Another that those who feel victimised should simply grow a pair. It seems for some senior figures, it's still very much a case of put up or shut up.
There was something I should have raised like this while I was working there, but...
Those we've spoken to believe that Westminster still has a long way to go before people feel able to raise concerns and be confident they'll be taken seriously. Well, within the last hour, the Commons Speaker has given us a statement saying the House is limited in its ability to intervene in harassment cases because MPs employ their staff directly. But he said a confidential helpline for staff is being set up. And just before we came on air, the Conservative Party told us that from tomorrow, they'd be making available to MPs a code of conduct and grievance procedure.